Well, hello there, and welcome to A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And as we're in the summer blockbustery kind of mood, a few weeks ago I did Bad Boys. Didn't seem to do so well, so I thought I'd do something a bit more fun, a bit more light-hearted. And what's more fun than Mel Brooks? So today I have decided to do his almost magnus opus, Robin Hood Men in Tights. It's funny, really. I feel like I came at Mel Brooks, or grew up with Mel Brooks, almost in the reverse way that a lot of people do. A lot of people grow up with Men in Tights, then come to Spaceballs, then go back and, of course, learn about things like Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. Yeah, I had a really sort of strange experience of Mel Brooks, because my first Mel Brooks film, the film that I loved as a kid, Mel Brooks, was Dracula Dead and Loving It. And I watched that film over and over again. And Dracula Dead and Loving It, I still hold to this day, is a great film. And as the final Mel Brooks directed film, I still have a certain fondness for it that might be tinted by rose-coloured glasses, and perhaps if I was to rewatch it now, it might not live up to my memory of it. And then, then it's sort of veered more towards people's traditional experience. So then, I think it was for me Blazing Saddles next, which is a genuinely great film. Spaceballs, then Men in Tights, and then Young Frankenstein. I think it was something like that. So I got round the Mel Brooks, and of course I've seen the other things like The Producers, and things he's produced, like, of course I've seen The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly, sorry. And yet, just focusing on his writing, directing, comedy efforts, which of course is what he's known for, you know, I have this knowledge of Mel Brooks that's strange, because I suppose a lot of people know when they're watching a Mel Brooks, you know, he is one of those directors, especially comedy directors, whose name is above the title. It's, you know, Mel Brooks's Robin Hood Men in Tights, Mel Brooks's Spaceballs. You know, he's one of those directors that during a certain period, if we knew he was doing a film as an audience, it was a big event. And of course there is something about him that's just so culturally relevant and influential, and I completely understand that. And it's funny, really, coming at Robin Hood and sort of the way that I approach Robin Hood. Like my relationship to Robin Hood's a bit of a funny one. I mean, like everyone, as a child, I grew up with the original sort of storybook versions, the Disney Fox version, into sort of more traditional Old English retellings where it actually said what happens to him, and a bit more breaks away from the things that we know in the zeitgeist. And then I always have had a little bit of a soft spot for the 2005, I want to say, series, the BBC one, which, yes, it is Robin Hood tries to be cool, but I always liked it, especially the first two series, which famously were much better than the third. I had a genuine soft spot for, say, Keith Allen as the sheriff, and of course it brought us Richard Armitage as Guy of Gisborne, and I don't know, I thought there was something about that was such a good adaptation. And then going forwards, of course, I remember the Russell Crowe version, which is not good. Despite everything, it is not good. I haven't seen the most recent Taron Egerton one. And then somewhere amongst that, I have, of course, seen the Prince of Thieves version somewhere, but I don't quite know when I first saw it. And I've seen Men in Tights, but again, I don't remember when I first saw Men in Tights. And the thing which you can say about Men in Tights is the fact that, frankly, you could say, oh, it's a parody version. It is a comedy, it is the, a scary movie Meet the Spartans type parody of Robin Hood with cultural references and parody and pop culture and everything, sort of everything in the kitchen sink thrown in. And yet, actually, the funny thing about Men in Tights is the fact that, with a few exceptions and a few caveats, I almost treat it as seriously as any other adaptation of Robin Hood. There's something about it, and there's something about the way Mel Brooks tells the story, that you could almost go, this is as valid a version of Men in Tights as of Robin Hood, as Prince of Thieves, or the Russell Crowe one, or the classic 1960s version. There's something about it that gives it an authenticity. I mean, I suppose Robin Hood is one of those characters where, as long as you you place the consistent elements that make up Robin Hood, so Robin Hood, the merry men characters, the forest as a setting, the castle as another setting, the sheriff, King John as a sort of overarching sort of force of bad will, you can kind of do whatever you want with Robin Hood. It's such a flexible, that there isn't a law of Robin Hood that people are like, oh, there are things that Robin Hood has to have, but there isn't a sense of, oh, this is the story of Robin Hood, these things, if you deviate, then, in tone or style. Robin Hood really is so flexible, and again, it's because, of course, it comes from an ancient English story, so it's not like, even something like Sherlock Holmes, people are probably a little stricter on. Yes, we've now seen that sort of bend to different variations. Or James Bond, similarly, there are certain expectations of types of story, and people, fight over what they expect James Bond to be. Whereas Robin Hood, when someone announces they're making a new Robin Hood, frankly, people are like, great, show us something new, show us a different variation of the story that in the same way as like a Shakespeare adaptation. It's like, oh, give us, that's great. Do something with it that we don't expect. And that has had varying success and failures. But like I say, I think Men in Tights is probably one of, not only the most valid, but one of the longest lasting. Partly because, and I wonder if it fits into something of the pantomime of it. And I was thinking about Dracula Dead and loving it, and this, and I was wondering, rather than, because, okay, if you look at Spaceballs, now, this is where I've been putting this off through this video. I'm not the biggest fan of Spaceballs. I don't know if that's because I have certain strict attitude to science fiction, or because, of course, it's parodying Star Wars, and I have a certain relationship with Star Wars where the fact that it's sort of a clowny pantomime version of Star Wars frustrates me more than I enjoy it, or whether it's veering too much towards the Wayne's Brothers style of parody, which is far too interested in pop culture references and intertextuality and going, oh, look, this is like Star Wars, but we're also going to throw in references to Planet of the Apes, and we're going to throw in these funny bits that some of which don't age well because we don't know the reference, or some of which don't age well because, frankly, as time goes on, our cultural attitudes change towards things. And I struggle with it. I really do. Robin Hood Men in Tights has the same elements. It's probably closest to Spaceballs in that respect, and yet the silliness of it, the sense where it goes from very melodramatically romantic to all-out self-referential comedy, where you have Carrie was saying, "Oh, I'm at least I'm a Robin Hood who can speak in an English accent." Two references to things going on at the pop culture references of the 90s. And I was thinking the reason it works for me here is because it is a television pantomime. It is a television pantomime. It literally has those same elements where, if you were to go to a stage production, there would be moments where it is incredibly melodramatic and romantic, particularly, in the love section or, certain plot beats, and yet will switch on a dime to over-the-top villains, or switch on a dime to self-referential, whatever's pop culture being sort of acknowledged, and that's very pantomime. Now, the funny thing is, I'm not the biggest pantomime fan, and yet here it works because I believe it, and it doesn't break the authenticity of the Robin Hood story. It's just, there are points when it's very silly, there are points when it's very fun, and it just seems to find that balance so well. It doesn't do it, and as I say, there are certain things that don't age as well, there are certain cultural references that don't age quite as well as we would want them to. As I say, the shift in attitudes towards certain things, but if you can forgive those, which you should, I do think this is a fairly definitive Robin Hood telling. I know when it gets to Dracula Dead and loving it, I actually think that they sort of back off from that a little bit, and they actually try to go for a much more authentic Dracula telling with jokes, but they sort of veer away from the pantomime of it. I still think, in my perspective, that I prefer, and I love Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein are so good. They are. I'm hesitant to say because I need to rewatch them, but they are almost perfect comedies. And I think this really, Robin Hood is definitely up there with like Airplane in terms of that parody style. As I say, I'm not the biggest fan of the Wayans brothers stuff. I do like the first couple scary movies. I don't love them, but I can appreciate them. And as things went on and it went away from them and it became more of a juggernaut machine where you end up with things like Meet the Spartans, an epic movie, and it becomes just palpably ridiculous. I think it was a shame because it sort of caused the parody film genre to implode a little bit. So you very seldom see those anymore. And if they are, they're like horrible, like 50 Shades of Grey parodies that are just weak, poorly written, and poorly performed. Whereas what you will say about this is that it is incredibly well written and incredibly tightly directed. That yes, it's silly. And I've talked about how comedy is very much about the duck principle, where comedy looks like everyone's improvising, it's all being made up, everyone's bouncing off each other, and the script is flexible, and nothing really matters. But underneath the water, the legs are kicking, and the comedy director has to be working incredibly hard to make sure the machine is functioning exactly as it's supposed to. And I think this is a demonstration of that. Whereas I think later parodies became so much about, let's just throw this reference in, or a reference, let's throw this pop culture thing going on at the minute, or this meme, or this celebrity, where it kind of forgot about strong structure, strong directing. And that's why I think it imploded, and it would be great to see a return to something like Men in Tights, or like Airplane, and hey, even like Spaceballs, because people do genuinely love Spaceballs. But yeah, this is a fun film. It's a very fun film. Like I say, it's not my favourite Mel Brooks, but it's such an easy watch. It's such an easy watch. You can put it on and just, it clicks right in. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, comment below, and share the video, because it's all helping the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell to get notifications of when new videos are uploaded, and check out my back catalogue of over 150 videos. Follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about TV shows and films, and I share these videos once they're uploaded to YouTube, either the day of or the day after. Thank you for joining me. Take care.